Helena Moreno, of course, the Vice President of the City Council and a mayoral candidate. Thank you for coming in to talk to me.
Thanks, John. Good to be here.
Why don't you give us like your quick, 2-minute elevator pitch for why people should vote for you for mayor?
You got it. Well, obviously, the city of New Orleans right now, we're at this tipping point, and you're either going to have somebody come in and be the next mayor and keep us going in the same direction, or you're going to have someone like me who's going to take us in a whole new direction and get this city functioning. John, you know that I've been on the city council for quite some time. There's been so many instances where I propose solutions and even legislative items to help our city really do much better in delivering services for the people of the city. And I have felt that for so long, even when I have passed legislative items, that I've been ignored and kind of pushed to the side and things not implemented. And so a couple years ago, I actually, sat down with my husband when we started to just see how many of our friends and family were starting to leave the city because it was just so hard to live in the city of New Orleans. I sat down with him and I was like, what if I ran for mayor? People had been talking about it in the past, but I was like, what if I actually did this? And thank God that he fully supported me in it, because without his full support and my family's full support, there's no way that I could be on this journey, and there's no way that I could be a good mayor, because it is a sacrifice, and to be a good mayor, you have to prioritize the people of New Orleans and be a 24/7 mayor, and that is what I will be. So where I am different than others is that first, I come from a journalism media background. And so transparency and communication for me is going to be key, which of course is very different than what you've seen with this administration. Number two, I also have a state legislative background as well, served in the state legislature. So I know how Baton Rouge operates. I know how to get things done. We have had like no good, real legislative agendas moving forward from the city throughout really this entire administration. So that would change with me. And then number three, on the city council, I have had a firsthand look at what is broken, and I also see the solutions to get these things fixed. So on day one, I can start moving us in a new direction and finally, making sure that we can deliver for the people of the city the services that they deserve.
Well, kind of on that note, the Times-Pick did the story a few days ago about the budget shortfall for this year. And, some of that, it seems like, is tied directly to spending around the Super Bowl. And so that was kind of a bit of a one-time expense for some of that stuff. But there are some shortfalls that are going to be kind of chronic, looks like, at least right now. Given the fact that I think as a citizen, I look around the city and I say, okay, well, there was $400 million that got pumped into the city. And I don't see where it got spent in a lot of cases. I think the only area where you can see it are some of the programs maybe dealing with the causes of crime, some of the stuff that was done with their youth. But you come in, you're going to be dealing with a shortfall budget, and it's really with a public that is going to be like, we need to see change immediately, whether it's the roads or whatever. How do you do that?
So first, we have to do away with potentially what could be some budget myths. And what do I mean by that? So you may recall during this past budget season where we go through the budget season, CAO is like, here's the budget, here's what we've got. We go through it, all fine, whatever. We get into the beginning of this year and all of a sudden the finance department's like, oh no, we're in big trouble. We have all these issues. And then the CAO's office is like, no, it's actually not that bad. And the finance department's like, no, it's really bad. So what is the truth? So the first thing I have to do is come in with forensic auditors to like really get to the bottom of like, where are we financially? Like what's really happening? And then from that point on, I will have to reshape and reorganize city government so that it is meeting our priorities. And so, for example, what do I mean by that? We have some departments that, in my opinion, are very bloated and are not producing any results. Like, for example, the Office of Criminal Justice Coordination. Do you know what they do?
No.
They have a $10 million personnel service, and they are not doing the level of coordination that we need by any means. You probably only need one person in there, and it's really about just receiving federal grants and moving them in a certain direction. But you don't need $10 million of general fund money within that office, so that's not working. And, I have many other examples of that, but there's other inefficiencies as well. We keep outsourcing things that we don't need to outsource, and then things that we, should be doing, that we should be outsourcing, we're doing in-house. And you just mentioned about the money that was being pumped into our city. During the end of the Landrieu administration, beginning of Cantrell administration, we started to begin to get, the roughly $2 billion in the Katrina money to fix our roads, right? So in 2018, when Joe Geruso and I got in, we went and met with the deputy CAO, and we said, okay, with this amount of money coming in, over $1 billion in that first tranche, we said, what are we going to do to make sure that we hold everybody accountable and that this money is actually spent well and everything goes right? And they were like, well, what do you mean? We're like, well, are you getting project managers? Who are the project managers for this? They're like, no, we're going to handle it in-house. Handle it in-house? What are we talking about? There was no way that you could handle this many projects, these many contractors all at once. And sure enough, because they didn't, there was a lot of misuse of this money. And what I mean by that is that many mistakes were made, that then you had to spend extra money to fix the mistakes, change orders over and over again. So that, not doing that right certainly was a big waste. But then the other piece too, let's stay on just streets. When it comes to just general street maintenance, I'm talking the pothole crews, okay? We are outsourcing that to different contractors when that's really an expensive way to operate, when we should be hiring 100 people to be the pothole crews for the city of New Orleans. And so for the city of New Orleans, as far as our DPW workers right now, we only have one pothole crew for 1,500 miles of streets. And so, it's just the things are backwards. So I look forward to really in my first 100 days, and I want to manage expectations right now. First 100 days, I have to go in and specifically focus in on basic services. So making sure that my key priorities on making sure that our streets maintenance happens, that our traffic lights work, that our street lights are on, those basic things need to be worked out. I need to make sure that all of my departments are working with urgency, coordination, and collaboration, just like they did during Super Bowl, but get used to doing that all of the time. So really start running a tight ship, which I can tell you that has not been happening for quite some time.
Are you committed to not having that be in certain parts of town, right? Super Bowl is an example.
Yes.
We all watched, lots of stuff get done in the CBD and on the French Quarter. And then the rest of our neighborhoods, nothing was happening at all. And now it's sort of back to the old way of digging a hole, dumping some dirt, and leaving, which they've done twice on my street last week. So but the East, the Lower Ninth, other parts of the city, they seem to be getting still to this day ignored.
Yes, and actually that is my commitment. And usually when we talk about New Orleans East and also the Lower Nine, what they really talk about is the lack of focus on trying to get economic investment to those areas. And so one of the things that I plan on doing as far as what my priorities are, and every mayor's priorities are different, but unfortunately our economic development department right now is down to an executive director and a part-time assistant. That's it. So when I'm mayor, I plan on obviously making economic development a big priority, where I'll even have a team specifically dedicated to underserved areas like New Orleans East. Because honestly, New Orleans East has all the potential in the world. I mean, the fact that you have the new lit terminal, being built, and that you already have Slidell, trying to recruit everyone to come to Slidell, and we as a city, as a city hall, isn't doing anything to try to recruit these businesses to come to New Orleans East is really a terrible direction to be going in. And so making sure that we're recruiting businesses. The other thing too that I think could be really a good step for New Orleans East and that the community wants is bringing actual city hall services to New Orleans East, like a city hall annex, like a mini city hall to New Orleans East. And that alone itself would also help spur additional retail and things like that. But, there's just been such a lack of focus on retaining and recruiting businesses in New Orleans East. And there were some things that, no doubt about it, this administration could have done to keep, even Fallberg Brewery. They were out there and they were having issues with sewage and water board. They were having issues with beautification and trash pickup and things like that. But they felt like the city was ignoring them completely. And because they never got any additional assistance, they were like, well, if y'all don't care, we don't care either, and we're out. So.
Well, just seeing like everyone talks a good game about trying to do stuff out there. And then, it took, for every, Lincoln Beach, which worked really hard with a lot of the community folks to get done, you have you have Faubourg Brewery, or you have Six Flags, which doesn't seem to be happening. If it is, it's happening at a much slower pace than I think even New Orleanians would have expected, which is pretty slow. You know, and what are things that you could do realistically in those first 100 days to sort of give people that live there some hope that like the city is actually going to pay attention to them?
Yeah, I think probably the low-hanging fruit over there that I think would initially just be viewed of okay, Helena is serious about this, is bringing a grocery store to New Orleans East. You don't need a $2 million study to bring a grocery store to New Orleans East. It just takes conversations with real estate experts and grocers as to what they need and where's the right location, which I've already done. And what grocers say that they want and need is to have a substation, a police substation within the grocery store. And so in talking with Chief Kirkpatrick, she's like, that sounds great. We can have a substation within a grocery store because it's like now it allows for police officers to be able to do their police reports, grab some dinner, things like that. It's all a workable thing. So it's about putting all the pieces together. And so I think that if I were, and I plan on doing this within my first 100 days, make that announcement that a grocery store is coming, I think that the folks in New Orleans East would say, wait a second, she really does prioritize us. And then they'll see that the rest of my plan, and I'm the only one who's actually put on their website my plan for New Orleans East, that they'll see that, wait, well, if she did this, then she's serious about the rest of her plan too. Okay. Yeah.
Switching gears a little bit here, Donald Trump has said he's going to potentially send the National Guard here. And I want to come back to that in a minute. But a lot of us in the city have been watching some of the efforts to have real-time facial recognition cameras and surveillance and just sort of expanded sort of in-your-face kind of policing with a lot of alarm and, you know, worry very much about what's going to happen to Latinos, but also just more broadly immigrants in our community. But also, frankly, the idea of Jeff Landry or Donald Trump having their own armed, you know, uniformed group in the city that could take advantage of that to target black people or whoever.
Yeah.
Do you support having the real-time cameras, and does it concern you at all that that may happen when Jeff Landry could get control of that and use it against us?
Yeah, so I think first we need to make sure that the viewers, listeners, that they know that there's facial recognition and then there's real-time facial recognition, because I find so often that people don't know the difference. So right now we already have facial recognition. That's like if, you know, you're looking for trying to figure out who somebody is, you put a picture in and it's like it scans and it sees, like, tries to identify the person, right? Okay. So real time, and this is where it gets concerning, is the scanning, the live video feed scanning, kind of looking for certain people. And, you know, there was work that was being done by NOPD to try to figure out how to draft an ordinance around allowing NOPD to utilize this type of scanning. And I'll tell you this, I mean, it's like, I did a ton of research into this, a ton, because obviously, you know, there's all the talk about the benefits. You can catch all these, you know, people and all these violent people and all this stuff. And looked at what potentially other cities had done around this. And there's no other city that has put in place an ordinance for real-time facial recognition of this scanning. And, you know, I have my chief of staff in my office she is amazing and, like, such a top policy person. Like, she tried to put together, you know, different protections, but nothing that we were doing would be enough to really prevent abuse. So what do I mean by abuse? That could be anything from, you know, your buddy is mad at his girlfriend and searching for his girlfriend, and all of a sudden you put her image up and she's supposed to be in the French Quarter and located, like, it was just getting really difficult to figure out, like, how do you prevent that? Or how do you prevent, you know, whether it's on immigration or profiling or whatever. It was just to put in the right protections is incredibly difficult. And so as it was starting to move through the city council, myself and other council members, we were like, we just are not comfortable with this at all. And clearly other cities are not as well, because it's just so hard to put in place those protections.
Right.
And so I think that it's going to be, you know, very tricky for probably, it'll probably be the next city council to try to put this in place, because I just don't see how the protections are there, and I can't be for it if I don't feel comfortable with the protections being there, and I don't know how you do that. That being said, though, keep in mind that the federal government, along with state police, probably are already doing this around the state and other parishes as well. But there's no like local ordinance or anything guiding it, but they're doing it. So there's that too.
Oh, that's concerning.
Yeah, it is concerning. And those are the conversations that I've had with advocates as well, that it's like, I mean, here in New Orleans, I mean, yeah, okay, so you're not going to have NOPD being able to utilize it, but really you would have to go to the state legislature to try to prevent for state police to be able to do it.
So they're already could potentially be using the network that
Project NOLA, absolutely, yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
Well, I mean that raises, I guess, the next question on this, which is, how do you mentioned you wanted to like come up with like a plan or a plan for us to deal with the legislature, right? Mm-hmm. How do you do that when it's Jeff Landry and the legislature we're kind of dealing with now, where it's, things are not even like what it was 15 or 20 years ago, where Republicans and Democrats kind of fought about stuff, but they could kind of find some ground on some things. How, like, what do you do as the chief executive of the city?
So Baton Rouge is a weird and interesting place, and I guess not really Baton Rouge, but the state capital, and dealing with legislators from the time that I was there and even to the time now. And ultimately, it's about building different coalitions to come together toward a certain piece of legislation or initiative. Mm-hmm. And I think that has been not done well over the past several years. And so, first of all, every year I'll put together the city's legislative agenda and work with our legislators to come up with who's going to be the bill authors for things that we need to do, and also listen to their ideas on what they think that the city needs to be doing and things that they may be leading on that I can put into the city's legislative agenda as well. And so once we have that in place, then we come up with a plan with our folks who are our lobbyists for the city. And then we start building coalitions around each one of these pieces of legislation. And then we move them forward that way. That's how you plan, and that's how you get major pieces of legislation passed. That's how I did it when I was a legislator. I'm probably the only legislator in the past 15 years who's beat the NRA on anything. And it's true. And it was back in 2014. The reason why I was able to do that is because I built such a large coalition of women, really. Whether they were Democrat, Republican, black, white, gay, straight, whatever, all coming together to say that we needed to do whatever possible to protect victims of domestic violence, even if that meant taking firearms away from offenders who were not convicted of the crime yet. And so we were able to do that just because of the level of support and the coalitions that we built. So that's the same type of efforts that we need to do as far as pushing the agenda for the city of New Orleans. I'm always one of those people who will do what I can to get into a room and have the discussions and try to get it done amicably. But if it's not working out for the people of the city, well, then I have to amp up my fight. And we just keep moving forward, and we'll amp up and do what we need to do to try to get what we need to get done for the people of the city.
Well, let's take this potential invasion by Donald Trump. What could you guys do now? Even just like in your current role in the city council, what could the council do, or even the mayor, assuming she's in town, to deal with that, to fight that?
You're talking about the National Guard issue?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I've been doing all day. So first, let me just say that I do not believe that it is a good idea to bring the National Guard or militarize the city of New Orleans. You probably already saw my statement. And the reason why I'm so adamant against that is because really, the utilization of the National Guard is for when you have some kind of imminent emergency, like a hurricane coming, something like that, or even in the aftermath of a hurricane to deploy resources, or when you have a major event here to help with like crowd control, things like that. The National Guard is not a law enforcement agency, so they have no real significant impact on short-term or long-term curbing of crime. And so that being said, while I've let our state leaders know and also members of the legislature know all day that I'm against this, I'm not against federal resources to come up with different ways to assist us for short-term and long-term solutions. So more of the long-term solutions, of course, are around prevention. Heavy investment in education, heavy investment in workforce opportunities, heavy investment in mental health treatment here in the city, which, as you know, currently we are, so substandard to where we need to be. If you want to talk about the law enforcement side, obviously we all already know that NOPD has been working closely with federal agents to try to curb violent crime. But if we want to go ahead and take extra steps, okay, well, let's take extra steps to get illegal firearms off of our streets and bring in more assistance to do that. Let's bring in more assistance to get the drug dealers off of our streets, because we still have so many people dying of fentanyl deaths, throughout the city of New Orleans. Like, that is the level of federal assistance that I would welcome. But bringing in the military is certainly not something that's going to be impactful on the short term or the long term for New Orleans.
Switching up a little bit, I want to give you a chance to talk about a couple of things that have been coming up during the campaign.
Okay.
The first is the line of attack that's against you, that you are a chaos agent, and the relationship that you and other members of the council have had with the mayor, that's the reason that everything's been kind of jacked up. Yeah, what do you say? Like, what is your response to that? I mean, it's obviously you've heard it from.
Of course, yes. And my response to that is just as I told you earlier, always more than happy to try to get into a room and resolve issues. Obviously, a perfect example of that is as we work through the settlement for the school board. School board needed this money. They were in a budget shortfall. We owed them money. We sat down with Gilbert Montano, the mayor's CAO. We all worked out a deal. We all went to a news conference together. Everything was great. Everything was fine. And then at the last minute, the mayor said, no, it's not fine, and I don't want to do it. Okay, well, now the children of New Orleans are losing out, and I'm not going to stand for that. So now we have to amp up our efforts, amp up our fight. And so I will always fight for the people of this city. And yes, my first attempt will always be to get in a room and try to resolve the issues. But if it's not resolved, and I'm not just going to just walk away and be like, oh, well, we lost. If the people of New Orleans are losing, I'm not going to just say, well, oh, too bad. I guess we'll just go back to my office now. Like, that's just not how I ever have operated. And so I will always fight for the people of the city. And if things aren't going right for them, well, then I'll amp up my fight. And so that's really how it's kind of gone down, over the past several years. And look, I'll never forget the whole issue of Gordon Plaza. In my first term, we were dealing with Gordon Plaza, and I can't tell you how many behind-the-scenes meetings I had with the deputy CAO, with the mayor's team. I'm like, why can't we figure out a path? Why? Oh, it's too complicated. Oh, don't worry about that. It's too complicated. Oh, they're just complainers. Don't worry about it, Helena. And I'm like, well, that doesn't seem right, And so because nothing was happening behind the scenes, I had to then amp it up, brought everybody to public meetings and a task force meeting. Constantly, those meetings were a lot. I mean, yes. I think I got like tomatoes and shoes and whatever thrown at me. But we brought everybody to the table, held everybody accountable, and finally got the deal done at the very end of the day and made sure that we relocated all of the seniors who were living in Gordon Plaza and got them safe and healthy homes of their own. And so that's just how it's been, Do
you think you guys did a bad job of communicating that relationship with the mayor, that to the public, all the pre-stuff that you were trying to do, in rooms, it just became sort of like, well, now they're fighting about this and now they're fighting about that. I mean, is that?
I think what we've probably failed to do is communicate about the 90% of the time when we did work well together and collaborate on things. I mean, there's been so many different things that I've worked on, for example, with the health department, so many things that I worked on with Chief Woodfork, with Chief Kirkpatrick, the overwhelming majority of things that we have done successfully together. I mean, that's like 90% of the things that went down. Same thing with working with the CAO. How many budget seasons that we had that were actually not really contentious, that we all worked collaboratively together. So we probably should have done a better job at telling that story. But then I'll also say this, and I'm not knocking the media because I'm also a former member of the media. But the other thing too is that ultimately it's the drama that catches the headlines
sure.
and not just like, oh, everything worked out so well.
Yeah, that's very
Everybody works so well together. Like that's not the story or the headline, And so, that, I mean, obviously we probably could have communicated that a little better.
You support the charter change on the
Confirmation?
the lawyer's office.
Yeah,
city
sure.
lawyer office.
Yes.
Will you also commit to not doing what the administration has done in terms of trying to find ways to expand executive power against the council? I mean, it's easy to say when you're on the council,
Yeah.
but then once you're the executive, that looks pretty tempting, right?
Yeah, I will say this. I just think that government ultimately operates better if they're if it doesn't seem so heavy-handed on one hand, and that it looks like it's more collaborative. And I do agree that there need to be kind of checks and balances, which is why I ended up voting for the confirmation process of city department heads. And, at the time, I can tell you that people were calling me. They're like, what are you doing? We want you to be the next mayor. You don't want to be jammed up. You want to pick your own people. You don't want to be jammed up by the council. And I'm like, hey. It's like all these other parishes are able to do it. And when I talked to other parish leaders, what they said is that the confirmation process is actually really helpful. The reason why it is because it forces your department heads to immediately start forming relationships with the council members. And so you start the dialogue, you get to know one another, you get to know each other's priorities, and it kind of puts everybody like on the same page, a right foot moving forward, and then moving into, of course, the confirmation process. So, and not to mention, like, I should be proud of the people who I'm putting forward. So I want them,
Right.
I want to like highlight, that these are like the best and the brightest who I'm moving forward as my department heads. And then when it comes to the law department, I just personally, saw for myself the issues of the law department just being so much on the side of the mayor. And this has been a complaint for decades now, which is one of the reasons why I think it was my first term. I get them all confused now. But during my first term, we brought on the executive council position so that finally the city would have some kind of representation on its own. But really, the city attorney is supposed to represent the best interests of the city of New Orleans on behalf of the people of New Orleans, not whatever the mayor thinks is the right thing, or not whatever the council thinks is the right thing. It's about what the city attorney, in that authority that she or he is given to represent the city and the people, that what they think is the best. And so whatever we can do to not try to pull them one direction or another, but just be able to make those good conscious decisions for the city, that ultimately is the best benefit to the people. And so that's why I supported that as well.
Okay. I think I got time for maybe two quick ones.
Sure.
One is also a thing that people said about you that I want to give you some time to respond, because I think it is a valid concern, some of it, or at least from some people. There's a lot of folks who will say, we need a mayor who is from here, born here, born and raised in New Orleans, to be the mayor. What do you say to that?
Well, I'll say this. There's no other place that I've ever called home except for the city of New Orleans. I'm someone who, throughout my life as a kid, until I was 21 years old, lived in many different places, including being born in a foreign country. I was born in Mexico, lived there until I was 8 years old. Spanish is my first language. I got here, 21, 22 years old, and this is the only place that I've ever called home, considered home. The people of the city, from when I was, a member of the media to when I got into elected office, like, they're the ones who've always meant the world to me. And this city is my heart. And I can't wait for this city to really be able to thrive. And, I don't even know if you can really measure the love I have for the city, because this city has given me so much that when I am mayor, I will make sure to stop at nothing to give all of myself to the people of the city. And so, maybe I wasn't born here, but I am definitely a New Orleanian.
Okay. And the last question is kind of a bit of a culture question, I guess, but kind of not. And a lot of this goes back to some of the stuff you've worked on, for instance, some of the pop-up regulations and permitting and all of that.
Sure.
The city was founded by a bunch of pirates, and it's always been a bit of a gray economy city. People have, operated outside of the technical boundaries of the law
Yeah.
for 300 years here. And then over the last 5 years, we've seen, people selling cold drinks at second lines getting targeted. We've seen folks that are selling barbecue at second lines, like under the bridge is always now. There's cops running around constantly, which that was never a thing before. And oftentimes as politicians, it seems like the obvious answer is I'll make a rule, right, to fix the problem. But if that feels contrary a little bit to New Orleans, is there first of all, would going after these small things be a priority in your administration? But also more broadly, is there a way to make sure that people are safe, obviously, and not eating bad food, but still not undermine kind of what the whole point of the city really is?
Yeah. Everything is a balance, right? And that's really what we need to do, is make sure that there's a balance. No doubt about it. Obviously, public safety is important. But at the same time, the city of New Orleans shouldn't just be like so super harsh and punitive as well. And, you did say, it's like sometimes you can come up with a new rule to allow for things. That's actually what we did with pop-ups, there are different ways that people can make money in the city of New Orleans that are kind of unique ways potentially to what other cities do. But the city never really thinks about making up these new rules or permits or things like that. And they could be very simple things, It's kind of like, no, it's just not allowed. Mm-hmm. And so the just not allowed mentality, instead of saying, wait, how can we make this workable, is kind of the different mindset that I have. And so I would find ways to say, it's like, okay, how is there a path to make this more workable? And instead of just being like, no, so punitive. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so that's kind of the balance that I would try to strike.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, and good luck with your race.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Sure.